Well, hello and welcome to Insights into Israel, where we're really talking about all things related to Israel from the ancient times to today. And once again, I'm so excited to have our guest, Shimon Zimmer, really, I think, Israel's premier, absolutely premier tour guide. I love traveling through Israel with Shimon. We just have a wonderful time and see so many fabulous things. And of course, my co host, Jeremiah D'Alessio. So I want to say hello to you, Shimon, and take a minute to
Hi,
tell us how you are doing. How are things there before we get started?
hi, hello,
Hi.
guys. In general, situation now, we still in a war, which going on for exactly 6 months. Uh, in these 180 days, we still have 134 hostages in Gaza, held by the Hamas. We know that many of them already died over there. We don't know what is the situation with the young ladies. We know some of them were raped. Some of them are even pregnant. We don't know anything. From time to time, the Hamas releasing names of people that actually died. Sometimes they accuse the Israeli bombing there. Sometimes they say they just died. So we don't know. And unfortunately, we don't see anything in the near future that is showing that the war is going to be over. So the situation is a little bit in the dark. We don't know anything about what will be in the future.
Oh, we have such empathy for you, and I support Israel so much, and whatever we can do to continue to support you and the people there, that's really what we want to focus on. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
well, today we're going back once again to ancient Israel, and we're talking about sites related to the life of Christ. And it's so great to have your knowledge about these locations. So, why don't you start us off with the first location, which has to do with the high priest Caiaphas?
Okay, first of all, kind of introduction. I'm very happy to talk about what we are going to talk today because it's really unusual. It's not subjects which usually people are dealing with, and we are going to talk about, in general, two main things. We're going to talk about Caiaphas. We're going to talk about general high priest. We're going to talk also about Joseph Arimathea, and we are going, of course, to talk a little bit about the Calvary, about actually the end of the Messiah on the cross. And uh, in the last podcast, that we talked about the temple in the time of Yeshua. We are actually moving forward, and after the Last Supper, Yeshua was taken to Gethsemane, which locates at the foot of Mount of Olives. We've talked about Mount of Olives. Gethsemane combine two words in Hebrew. Gat is the place which we producing wine press. Semene come from the Hebrew word shemen, which is oil. It's oil press or olive press. So we're talking about wine and olive oil, gat semene. The story of Gethsemane is a very big story. I'm always telling that Gethsemane is the beginning of the end of Yeshua. This is the place he came. Two of his disciples sat on the rock. He begged them, "Do not fall asleep," once and twice. But I want to mention another event that happened in Gethsemane, and this is the event which one of the people cut cut the ear, the right ear of one of the servants. And in order to understand what happened there, I'm going with my beautiful Bible. I'm going to the book of John, And the book of John 18, we're talking about verse number 10. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew struck and I'm sorry. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. So Yeshua said to Peter, put your sword into his sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given to me? So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jewish arrested Yeshua and bound him. First, they led him to Annas, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that time. I want you to remember the name Hannas. In Hebrew, we call it Hanan. Hanan. In English, it's Hannas, and it's very, very important to remember his name. A little bit further, we are going to talk about us. And after that, Yeshua was taken to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. We shall come to the house itself. But it's very important to talk about what is a high priest. Who is the high priest? Why it's so important in Jewish tradition when we're talking about the high priest. Actually, the high priest is appointed by a group of elders, 71 elders, which we call it the Sanhedrin. Unfortunately, in the Bible, not all the time the name Sanhedrin comes. Usually it will be a council, not Sanhedrin. That will be the name council. And from the beginning, the first high priest, which was Aaron, usually it went from generation to generation to generation. In the second temple period, that was in the Roman time, that was due to interest. The Romans, they put the high priest in position. And that really, it's a question of corruption. And we know that the high priest in the time of Yeshua, they were so corrupted. And this is why Yeshua fought against them.
So Shimon,
high priest should... Yes, ma'am.
Shimon, let me ask you a question. You say that the line of Aaron was interrupted, right? As in,
yes,
Hannas and Caiaphas were not from the lineage of Aaron. Is that correct?
Yes, because now it's appointed by the Romans, not always by the real people which they have to choose the high priest.
Is that because let me ask? Is that because the Romans thought that position was important in order to retain power, and they always wanted to pick somebody who was, I guess, on their side or supporting their cause, the Romans?
Absolutely, and this is the reason. And soon I'll talk about it. Caiaphas was in a very good relationship with Pontius Pilate. And we also think that this is the only reason why Caiaphas and Pontius Pilate, they ruled more or less parallel to the same time.
Right.
Usually it wasn't so many years. This time, Caiaphas ruled from 18 to 36, which is a very long time to rule.
Yes.
But you see, a high priest should be greater than the other priests. Yes. He has to be in strength, in wisdom, and even richer than the other priests. And what happens if he doesn't have enough money? The other priest will collect money and give him money. So at the end, he will be the richest one in this chain of a priest. when he's appointed, so he's going to be anointed for 7 days in a row, day by day. Only in a daytime he's going to be anointed, and after 7 days he's becoming the high priest. His clothes will be totally different from the others. He has eight layers of clothes, not four as the other simple, I would have said, a simple one. Yeah. And and the Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin, as we know, actually, I can't say they tried Yeshua, a trial, and it's a question either he was tried by them or he just was interrogated by them.
Right.
We are not sure, and scholars all the time arguing about this issue. And in the book of Matthew, it's very interesting. The book of Matthew, they're talking about the Sanhedrin. Then those who had, say, as Yeshua led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. Now the chief priest and the whole council means the Sanhedrin, council were seeking false testimony. Guys, the Sanhedrin, according to this Bible, not nice people. They wanted to put one target in front of their eyes, to find something about Yeshua, even if we are talking about false testimonies, to find someone that will lie. And it brings some question. First, did the Sanhedrin have the authorities to judge what we are calling criminal laws at that time? This is not their job. Secondly, and more interesting, according to the Jewish halacha, Jewish law, according to the Jewish law, the Sanhedrin is not allowed to act by night.
Right.
And all the and all this trial and the interrogation was by night. He was taken from the Garden of Gethsemane by night, and he was brought in front of the Sanhedrin by night. That's against the Jewish law. So basically, scholars are still fighting about the question: either he was interrogated or he was tried by them. Anyways, the end was that he was given. He will be given to the ruler. This is, of course, Pontius Pilate. It's important because each gospel, when you read chain of events from the Garden of Gethsemane, the house of Caiaphas, and going to the trial and the crucifixion, each gospel dealing with that a little bit in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm
Exactly.
sorry, you wanted to ask something?
No, I just in agreement with you. Yeah, that's right.
So that's unusual. So I'm going now. I'm going now. I want to talk about the high priest, and in order to understand what is the high priest, what is limitation, what is supposed to do, what is supposed to wear, what is a privilege, all that look in the book of Leviticus 21. Very difficult and complicated to read it because it combines very many words in Hebrew. But I would like soon to share with you something about this high priest. It's explained in the Jewish Torah, the Bible, that there are certain laws aimed just for the high priest. And the Bible full with that, the book of Leviticus, the book of Deuteronomy, all the time they're talking about that. Maybe it's because of his position, his virtue, so we know that he's working at the temple. He's the only one that can go into the Holy of Holies.
Right.
Not only to come close, but he's the only one going into the Holy of Holies. He can choose when to sacrifice and he can choose to pick up organs that he can take it to be eaten after the sacrificing the animal. And it's very interesting because those which were in Israel, I'm sure they remember a place named Tel Dan. Tel
Right.
Dan, the place of the tribe of Dan, that in the northern part of Israel, which now is under shooting and bombing from Lebanon.
Oh,
It's actually at the foot of the border, so we can't go there. Uh, Anyways, one of the excavations there, they excavated in the ground and they found holes in the ground, and they found many, many bones, but the bones combined kosher
right.
bones, like kosher animals, like cows and sheep, etc., but also, God forbidden, unkosher, like pigs and stuff like that. The professor told to the students that excavated there, guys, you dug here 7 holes, go to the other side of this area and try to dig there. They dug there and they found bones. And he told them, come sit around me. He took a paper, wrote something on the paper, and he asked them, take the bones and let's check the bones. All the bones, two things. One, all the bones were 100% kosher, but very, very important bones. And I want you to understand what bones. I'm going to read from the book of Leviticus. It's a Leviticus 7, and it says, and the right thigh and the right side you shall give to the high priest as contribution. Means the high priest always will pick up the right side of the animal, and he has the right to choose it. And the Bible tells us, yes, according to the book of Leviticus, this is exactly what he will get. So the high priest is a very, very high position.
Shimon,
Having said that, yes, ma'am.
is the idea of giving them the right side really it's about giving him something that's valuable and is plentiful and abundance for him, like he's receiving this first gift, if you will, by taking the right side. And from that, he would feed himself, his family, and the priest if he wanted to. Is that correct?
So we think that there is no any difference in the taste between the left and the right
Right.
of the animal soldier, but it puts a frame. He is the high priest. He
Right.
will get the right. Like he is the one that's going to choose what he will have, and it's
Okay.
a kind of basically a frame. But it's very like always, you know, I love so much to do the closure, to read in the Bible and to find in the excavations to find the real things. Um, but there are a lot of limitation on the high priest as well.
Hmm.
Many prohibitions on the high priest as well, especially when it comes to marriage. And I want, with your permission, to, I would have said, to dive into Judaism for thousands of years from the beginning and into the Hebrew Bible. And I'm saying that because unfortunately, not all the time things can be translated as it says in Hebrew and to translate it into English. So according to the law in the Bible, the book of Deuteronomy, according to the law, a priest cannot marry a divorced woman, unfortunately prostitute, proselyte, a woman that changed and status and she became a Jew, converted to be a Jew. She was a Gentile, now she is a Jew, proselyte. He can't marry her. And also they cannot marry something called halala in Hebrew, no word in English. And Halala is a woman that she was born to a priest that had relationship with a divorced or a prostitute or a proselyte, and she was born to this type of priest. No one is allowed to marry her. And the fifth one, they cannot marry to chalutza. Chalutza. What is chalutza? In order to understand what is chalutza, we have to understand another word in Hebrew, which we call it yibum. Yibum. Now listen to that. So we have two words. Yeah, it's become a little bit complicated. We have two words, as you can see. We have yibum and chalutza. Can you see that?
Yes.
Now, I must say that I try to convince myself from the beginning and try to explain it, because I think everybody likes the Old Testament and we have to understand what we are talking about. So let me try to put in a frame. Priests are not allowed to marry a divorced, a prostitute, a proselyte, halala, and chalutza. Halala we know. Now let's talk about chalutza, but we have to understand what is yibum. In order to understand what is yibum, I'm going to the book of Deuteronomy. It becomes interesting now. I'm going into the book of Deuteronomy, and in the book of Deuteronomy 25, verse 5, it says, if brothers dwell together, and one of them dies and had no son, the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her and as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband brother to her. Understood? In
Yes.
Hebrew, all I read here came to one word named yibum. In English, it's about 30 words. In Hebrew is one word, yibum. Yibum is when there are two brothers, one died, the other one is not married, the one that married, the unmarried will take his brother's wife and
Right.
marry her. And this is the only place in the Jewish Bible tradition, heritage law, that you can sleep with your brother's wife,
Right.
because now you marry her. We call it in Hebrew yibum. 30 words, verse 5. In Hebrew, one word in verse 5. Yibum. Now, if the brother will say to himself, oh, I don't want to marry her, she's not my type. So then we have a ceremony. The name of the ceremony is Chalutza, the first name. It's very bad. They spitting on the shoes and cursing and very bad. But guys, until today, people doing that. Until today. So,
Whose shoes
a
are they
regular
spitting
priest,
on? Shimon, who are they spitting on?
she is spitting on the brother's shoes.
Oh, okay.
And then chalutza in Hebrew means a kind of pulling up. She's being taken out from this situation.
Yeah.
But it's not only spitting; it's all kind of curses and yeah. I'm not going to do it. The people I know they won't do it, but religious people they doing it. So just to put in the frame, a
Yeah.
priest is not allowed to marry all these women.
Right.
High priest, as additional to all these five reasons, is not allowed to marry someone unless she is a virgin, never got married. This is
Okay.
the only one she can marry. So you see, that's actually kind of a very, very bad situation for priests and high priests. I hope it's not too complicated, but I really
Yeah.
wanted to share with you something about Jewish tradition and Jewish heritage.
Shimon,
So this, yes, ma'am,
Shimon,
yes,
I want to just throw out there that this is what John the Baptist was bringing forward to Herod Antipas, that he had married his brother's wife, but his brother was still alive. And so he
yes,
was pointing out that Herod had broken the law by
the law,
marrying,
exactly.
yeah, by marrying his brother's wife while his brother was still alive. Interesting,
Yes,
because you,
yes, yeah, that's exactly. And also in our tradition, actually, Ruth, she asked Boaz that he will yibum her. So
oh,
it's also according to Jewish tradition. It's also with Ruth and Boaz.
that's
So
interesting.
that's that's a little bit about high priest. Now let's talk a little bit about Caiaphas. First of all, in Hebrew, it's a little bit complicated because you see, the name of Caiaphas in Hebrew is Kepha. The name of Simon Peter is Kaifa. Simon Peter in the Jewish language, in the Hebrew, is Caiapha. So we have Caiapha and Kaifa, like two very similar, a small difference in writing in one letter. But we're talking about English, just interesting to see that in Hebrew, it's a little bit
Yeah,
different. So anyways, Kaifan was the son-in-law of Hannas. Remember Hannas?
right.
I told you that
Yes,
according to the Bible, Yeshua was taken first to the house of Hannas, that who was his daughter was married to Caiaphas.
right.
So basically, father-in-law. Hannas was a high priest from 6 CE to 15 CE. And actually, the entire family of Hannas were the high priest for almost 100 years. Almost the rest of the first century CE,
Wow.
it was people after Hanan or Hannas. The name is Hanan ben Shat. Hannas, the son of Shat. We think that the name Seth, Seth in English, preserving the name of Seth, this high priest, Hanan ben Shat, Hanan, the son of
So,
Seth.
again, Shimon,
Yes,
what you're saying is that they literally had a family dynasty in this position of high priest. It was an important
only,
role. Yeah.
only, yes, only if it fulfilled the Roman interests.
Okay.
And this family, yes, this family worked very close to the Roman regime.
And thus, when you talk about corruption, you're talking about this close relationship where the high
Yes,
priesthood was corrupted by their relationship with the Romans. Okay.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Well, it wasn't so much the interest for the Jews; it was more interest of the Romans to rule, to
Right.
control the Jews.
Right. Right.
Yes, that's how it was. Um, uh, you know, according to the Bible, Caiaphas held Yeshua in the dungeon, in the house of Caiaphas. I'm going soon to talk about that. But really, the question was why Caiaphas have decided to give Yeshua to Pontius Pilate, and why they so much pushed for his death. And we think that Pontius Pilate knew that Yeshua will be a kind of a problem due to the fact that actually Yeshua, it was a kind of like Yeshua show himself as the king of the Jews, and that really is that very that it put Pontius Pilate in a big problem. He said, wow, he's going to be the king of the Jews. What is going to say about my position? He decided to give him to the people and to put him on the cross. It's a big problem because you see, Caiaphas is a Jewish high priest. There is no any other way to look at that. The only way to look at that is the Jewish high priest fought against Yeshua.
Yeah.
As bad as it sounds, this is exactly how the situation was. You know that we in Israel, we love very much to talk about things that were found from that time. And in the 90s, about 30 years ago, they found a family cave. It was a kind of a burial cave, and they found into this cave they found ossuaries, and all these ossuaries are from the family of Caiaphas, and we even think that the ossuary is Caiaphas himself. This is the ossuary, and here there is inscription saying Yosef Bar Caiaphas. Yosef Bar Caiaphas. What you said Caiaphas, but this is of course Caiaphas. Another one was discovered there with Hebrew inscription saying Miriam Barat Yeshua Caiaphas. The name Jesus came, but maybe it's someone from the family. Yeshua is a very famous and popular Jewish name. But they found the ossuaries of this family.
So, hey, Shimon, I have
Yes,
two
please.
quick questions for you. One, something that's always confused me. Why does a high priest have a dungeon in his house?
Excellent question. Thank you so much. I'm going right away to answer this very good question. Okay? Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah. And now historians conclude from his long reign, Caiaphas, from 18 to 36, that he got along with Pontius Pilate. You know, they were actually 18 years together, hand by hand. And that's really showing the relationship between the two of them. Now, Yeshua was taken to the house of Caiaphas. Right after 1967, the Israeli archaeologists invaded into what was Jordan until 1967, looking for many things. The Western Wall and the walls of Jerusalem and the house of the high priest and the Last Supper room and, hundreds of sites. The house of Caiaphas was very easy to find because of a few reasons. First, the size. The remains of the size was huge, so big. They found many things like water systems that only the high priest had, the location that is very close to the temple. They found a staircase. For us, it's important that Yeshua walked on this staircase, but this is the staircase that the high priest went to the temple. And the unusual thing is the donjon. This is the rooms that they put people, they arrested people there. And that shows who is the high priest. Why high priest need a donjon in his house? Because he had people that opposed him, rejected him, tried to fight, tried to rebel against him. And he had this donjon in order to put these people into this donjon. This is actually the jail. And
what law gave him the authority to do that?
The high priest is the leader, the highest.
So whatever
leader.
He says goes.
There is no prime minister. There is no Jewish king. There is no Jewish prophet. There is no other Jewish leader. So the high priest, he is the leader. And this is why the Romans wanted so much to keep in touch all the time with the high priest.
Shimon, following up on
Yeah.
his question, why didn't they keep prisoners like that somewhere in the temple complex, which feels like it would have been a better place to have people that you are going to try or whatever?
If people would have been arrested in the temple, it would have been a revolt. The
Hmm.
temple is the most pure place in the world.
Okay.
Think about chain, and people with prisoner clothes and in a donjon. And no, it's too pure to put people in jail in the temple.
So this is the only place
So,
that they would take people who were arrested or
which
whatever
were
is
against the high priest.
oh,
The
okay,
Romans,
which
Mm.
oh,
were
they
okay.
had jails. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They
Right.
had
Okay.
jails. Sure.
So it's his
Sure.
own personal jail. And then I have another
Yes.
question regarding the King of the Jews idea. So
Yeah.
Jesus was perceived, or Jesus was perceived as the King of the Jews. And there was an interesting interaction. So obviously, Caiaphas didn't like this. Pontius Pilate didn't like this idea. It threatened their power.
Pontius Pilate didn't care.
Okay.
Pontius
Okay.
Pilate didn't care. Yeah.
So Pontius Pilate didn't care. Caiaphas clearly cared because it was a
Yes.
threat to his power. Now, after Jesus was tried and committed to death, Pilate had them write King of the Jews on the
In three
cross.
languages. Yeah.
Was that kind of, isn't that kind of a slight to Caiaphas
Yeah.
from Pontius
Yeah.
Pilate?
Yeah. He is the king of the Jews. Look where he is now. He is the king of the Jews. Look where he is now. Yeah. And it was written in some places, it's three languages. Some say Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek. Some saying in Latin. Yeah.
So you're saying
Yeah.
that
Jesus.
you're saying that Pilate didn't do that as a snub of sorts to Caiaphas. He did it
Look.
in
Yeah.
solidarity with Caiaphas, like this we're mocking Jesus.
Caiaphas saw Yeshua as a threat, but he didn't want to kill him. You know, he said, if I will kill him, look, all these Jews will revolt against me. And he didn't care so much about killing him. This is why he offered the people Barabbas. Hey, I have the thief.
You're talking about Pontius Pilate. You said Caiaphas, but it's Pilate.
Yeah. So I meant, of course, Pontius Pilate. Yeah, sure. Caiaphas wanted. Caiaphas wanted the high priest. Sure. Yeah, mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you're talking about the house of Caiaphas, and when we're taking the people there down to the pit, down to the dungeon, which really it's from that time, and all the evidence around showing that this is really the place. We're reading there from the Bible, and we're reading from the Bible from the book of Psalms, and the book of Psalms 88. I'm not going to read all the book of Psalms 88. It's a little bit long, but it was written 1,000 years ago, exactly word by word, to this situation. Yeshua in the dungeon talking to God. Just a few words. The book of Psalms 88, Yeshua said, "O Lord, God of my salvation, I cried out day and night before you. Let my prayer come before you. Incline your ear to my cry. For my soul is full of troubles, and my life draws near to Sheol. Sheol is Hades in Hebrew, Hades. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I'm in the pit. I'm in the dark. I'm only with you. Listen to my word." The whole chapter talking about how Yeshua is talking to God while he is in the dungeon, knowing that in a few hours he's going to be taken to the crucifixion. And so the house of Caiaphas is really thrilled and touching. I love the place very,
I
very
do
much.
too.
Very,
I
very
have to
much.
say, it's so moving to be there and think that
Yeah.
of his agony in there and being on his own, completely separated from his supporters. It just brings people to tears every time.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. All you have to
Yeah.
do is to stand in this donjon in the dark, surrounded by these walls. You
Hmm.
are by yourself with God, and all you have to
Yeah.
do is talk to God. And the book of Psalms, word by word, I'm
Yeah.
in the dark, in the pit.
Yeah.
Why are you ignoring me, God? Unbelievable,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Great
Uh,
description of that.
yes, yeah, and when we're talking about the Calvary itself, it's interesting because all the four gospels dealing with that, but each one in a different description of chain of event, but of course everything drained to the same end. But it's
Yeah.
interesting to read what they saying. Uh, when we're talking about the crucifixion, you know that we have two. I would have say, according to tradition, two places. One we call the Garden Tomb, and the other one we calling the Holy Sepulchre. Holy Sepulchre is 2,000 years old. Who can beat it, right? 2,000 years old, you're going
Hmm.
in, you can see the Golgotha, the hill inside this church. Um, you see, the question, if according to the Jewish law, Yeshua was crucified out the walls, as it says in the Jewish law, you have to be buried outside the walls, and
Right.
both are yes,
Yes.
because during the 4,000 years of Jerusalem, guys, more than almost 20 walls were built in the city and around the city, more.
Hmm.
And so definitely when we look into the same locations, it's outside the walls. Um, According to a little bit more Catholics, we have 14 stations from the trial to the crucifixion. In the Bible itself, it's a little bit less, but it's beautiful to walk in the alleys of Jerusalem along the stations and to come to station number 14, the crucifixion, and 13 and 14, the crucifixion and the burial. And it's no doubt, and you're going in this church and you see station number 12, the cross was put in the place. Station number
Hmm.
13, it was taken down from the cross, laid on the stone of anointing. And station number 14, where he was buried and resurrected. Unbelievable. It's really, I'm as a Jew going into the places for 30 years, and every time it's amazing. And I love to
Yeah.
take my fellows Christian to the place.
That
Um,
is like in Jerusalem, Shimon, that is my favorite place. In Jerusalem,
yes, in
it's my
Jerusalem.
favorite place because you feel so connected to the story there and you see all the pilgrims coming through and experiencing it. And the design of the church is complicated and it's a bit over the top. But when you actually are in the edicule, in the place where Jesus's body was put, it is an extremely spiritual moment. And that's
Yeah,
why I'm so attached to it. And I feel like it most likely is the location as compared to the garden tomb, which you were talking about. But yeah,
yes,
this is a place where we know that he suffered, where he was crucified, where he was prepared for burial, where he was buried. And it's an unbelievable place. And interestingly, it's the Muslims who hold the keys to the door of this church, right?
for
Yeah.
800 years. The same
Yeah.
Muslim family, the same Muslim family, 800 years, opening the church in the morning, close it by night. The same
Hmm.
I
Muslim family.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
And the reason for
sorry.
that, when we shall talk about it, yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
totally understand what it's very very touching the place.
Yeah,
By the
yeah.
way, a few things about the crucifixion. First of all, there is a big debate: how many nails? By the way, in Europe, thousands of people were killed because of wars in Europe, either 3 nails or 4 nails. Until today, they fighting about the thing. We believe that when Yeshua was crucified, they put on the cross another piece of wood, which we call it the chair of mercy. And we believe they put it in order a little bit to lift him, so the suffering will be continued more. Crucifixion supposed to beg God to die 72 hours. After 72 hours, you'll die. For Yeshua, they wanted to schlep it longer. So they put a small piece of wood behind him to lift him a little bit, so it will be less pressure on his body and his suffering will be continued more.
Was it Shimon?
Yeah.
That piece of wood under his feet, or where was it?
No,
Physically?
under his
No.
behind.
Okay.
To lift him a little bit. Yeah.
All right.
Now, a few years ago, something amazing was discovered in Israel. First, people are not realize that the Romans, in 500 years, being the rulers, between 2 to 3 million people were crucified. Not only in Israel, of course, all around. And how people were crucified. And you all know, we're putting the cross, they are putting the nails. A few years ago, something amazing was discovered, and I hope you'll succeed to see that. It was an ossuary found in Israel.
Oh, yeah.
The name,
I've seen this.
a Jewish name, his name is Yohanan. A Jewish name was carved on the ossuary. What we see is a piece of bone as a nail inside. This is the only evidence ever found around the world, original nail in a bone. But it's very interesting. The bone belongs to the ankle. To the ankle means it wasn't put in front, from the side. And we believe that the way of crucify the people, it was this way. As you can see, ropes on top and the nails from the side, People saying that the Romans knew that in the ankle, on the side, there is a nerve. When the nail touches this nerve, you will beg God to die, but you won't die. And this is how they did it. And we believe that the way of crucified people was to put on their shoulders, to put the horizontal wood, and they walked in the city. And when they were brought to the place of the crucifixion, they were lifted and put on the cross. So basically, the cross is supposed to be like that. Why the cross is like that? Why like T? This piece, this is exactly Jesus from Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This is the piece of wood that was put on top with these 3 inscriptions, Jesus from Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Otherwise, the cross would have been like that. The cross is like that. This piece is what was written. When Yeshua was on the cross, the miracle was that after a very short time period, he stopped from breathing.
Yeah.
And Pontius Pilate sent a soldier to stab Yeshua. In external book, the name of this soldier is Longinos. And he stabbed Yeshua, and water came out.
Right.
Water means he actually died. The stabbing is interesting because the stabbing is mentioning in the book of Zechariah. About 800 years before the crucifixion. And I will pour out on the house of David and inhabitants the inhabitants of Jerusalem, a spirit of grace and pleas of mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced. We're talking about the house of David and the one that was pierced. Zechariah already talked about it about 800 years before the event of Yeshua. Yes.
Shimon, what you're saying is that,
yes.
Again, say that what came out from the side was water, but it was intended to be mercy. And what was the other message in Zechariah? Pouring out mercy, pouring out.
The house of David and stabbing.
Yeah, right.
The house of David and stabbing.
Yeah. But what say again what Zechariah said about when he was stabbed, what came out? It was the pouring out of mercy.
So, and I will pour out on my house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced, it continues, and they shall mourn for him.
Okay.
For the one that was stabbed. Yeah.
I see.
So, Shimon, are you saying that the grace and mercy was the fact that it didn't take 72 hours, that it took a much less time?
Oh, yeah, like a couple of hours. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like even less. Yes.
Yeah.
So, when you stabbed, so water came out. Longinos, by the way, if you will visit St. Peter, the biggest church in the world, in Rome, around the tomb of Peter, there are 4 statues. I'm talking about 10 or 12 foot high statues. One of them is Longinos, standing with the spear. Two people are mentioning in the story. One is Nicodemus, and the other one is Joseph Arimathea. Now, Nicodemus actually mentioning only in the book of John. John, and actually in the book of John 3, there is a conversation between Yeshua and Nicodemus. This is the only place actually they're talking about Nicodemus. But Joseph Arimathea is different, is very different. In Hebrew, we call him Joseph Haramati. Haramati means he came from a place named Ramatayim. Who else came from Ramatayim? Prophet Samuel. He was born in a place named Ramatayim. And Joseph Arimathea was born in the same place. The Gospels describe the relationship between Joseph Arimathea and Yeshua in different ways. It's interesting. Luke and Mark, they just describe that actually he was a kind of counselor and righteous man, but not as a disciple of Yeshua. When we're talking about John said that he was disciple of Yeshua, but in a secret way.
Right.
Like no one knew. Matthew said that he was a disciple of Yeshua in open way. So each one talking a little bit in a different way. Joseph Arimathea, in 2 places, something written about him. The book of Matthew 27, it says, as evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Yeshua, showing he was a rich man, Joseph Arimathea. Then it says in the book of Mark 15, it says, it was preparation day. Preparation day in the Bible means Friday, before the Shabbat. So as evening approached, Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent member of the council of the Sanhedrin, who was himself waiting for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for Yeshua's body. So in 2 places we see one, Joseph Arimathea, was a very rich one, and he was a member of the Sanhedrin, actually the one that interrogated or actually judged Yeshua. He was a servant of God. That's no doubt. You know, when you look to the book of Isaiah, the book of Isaiah 53, the book of Isaiah 53 talking about, it gives us a clue about a rich man and bury people among evil people. And the book of Isaiah 53, as Christians, always the book of Isaiah 53 is a big
Right.
symbol.
It's
Yeah.
the suffering servant pass, right? It's suffering
Yes.
servant
Yes.
53, right?
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about the prophet Daniel 9, Daniel 9 pointed the date when Yeshua was crucified. You can read in between the lines the date that Yeshua was crucified, which this is by itself a conversation. Prophet Isaiah completes the picture when he gives details about the reason why the Messiah actually died. And it's so clear, and I would have said, even if I may say, chillingly, the way Isaiah described the place. So it's a great way, and I think one of the podcasts we shall do, the big connection between Isaiah 53 and Daniel 9, we can actually make a big closure about Yeshua, and that's the
I love
Old
it.
Testament. Yeah.
Right.
More about Joseph Arimathea, a very famous historian named Eusebius, he talks about Joseph Arimathea. In the 12th century, something new came up. And since the 12th century, Joseph Arimathea connected with the legend, mentioned that he is the first keeper of the Holy Grail. Joseph Arimathea, he actually was the first keeper of the Holy Grail. So, as I've said, we try to go today into a niche, which usually people not talking so much about the high priest, about Caiaphas, about Joseph Arimathea, a few words about Nicodemus, and these are the issues.
Shimon, I feel like that was excellent. And the value of learning more about the high priest is that it helps us to understand the sequence of events and the different personalities involved in the execution of Christ and what their purpose was for doing it. So I love that whole discussion of the high priest. Really informs and enriches our understanding of the various authorities over there. I also
can
really
promise to
love.
you that I'm not going to test you about Chalutza, Halala, and Ibum. I'm not going to test you.
Well, I love that I found a connection there between what you're saying and John the Baptist. So I'm excited about understanding
Yes, exactly.
that now.
That's exactly.
It was
yeah,
excellent. Yeah. And I have to say, as far as the discussion of Calvary and crucifixion, I really had no idea that there were 2 or 3 million people executed through crucifixion. We knew it was a
500
common
years.
Roman, we knew it was a common Roman way to do it, but it just is so horrific. And to think that was going on all over and so many, it would have been so deep in your psyche. I mean, it would have made you so afraid of the Romans. I see why they did it, but it seems like a terrible way to kill people. It's just cruel. So cruel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shimon, I always find our time with you.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, Shimon, I always find our time with you so informative. Like, if you look over in the States or Western Christianity, so often we just pull the pieces of the threads of the story that kind of reinforce, and we skip over all these other pieces. And we lose so much of the gravity and the weight and the intensity of these stories when you start to unlock Caiaphas and why he has a dungeon and the relationship with Pilate. You see the tentacles of this power structure going out, and so much more what Jesus was addressing, or Jesus was addressing with his time with us.
Yahshua.
Okay.
Yahshua.
Joshua.
Yeah.
Yeshua.
Yeshua. I want to say one more thing about Calvary, which is that now Calvary it's pretty much a part of the city of Jerusalem, that hillside, and that whole hillside is now developed and beyond that. Correct. So now, if you go there, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is inside the city wall. So these little details
Absolutely.
of locations and where they were in ancient times versus today, I think that's absolutely fascinating. And once again, I want to say that your knowledge about Israel and your ability to bring all this to life is what makes you such an extraordinary guide. And I want to make certain that people know, if they want to go to the Holy Land, that they should reach out to you, which is Shimon Zimmer at gmail.com, and it's Zemer. And I want to encourage people to reach out to you and discuss about going there, because before too long, we will be going back there. And you also have fabulous trips to Greece. So I want to encourage people to support you in your career and take, get from you such amazing knowledge. And I really can't wait to be back in Israel with you.
Yeah. Looking forward. And bring Jeremiah.
Absolutely. Bring me.
Bring me. So anything else? Any other closure? I'd like to say that we'll have additional conversations with you, Shimon, and there's so many directions we should go, and we'll work together on figuring that out. And we look very much forward to our next conversation with you. So thank you for your insight.
Me too.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
See you soon.
Bye, Shimon. Thank you.
Okay.